He's there! It's David Legge from the BBC World Service.
He's in, he's on.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We've had a lot of trouble. Oh, haven't we had a lot of trouble?
Well, you've had a lot of trouble. I've just been sitting here for the last 2 hours.
Well, we're radio people, you see.
Yes, I've never appeared on screen before.
No.
So this really is
I'm the same.
Uncharted territory.
So we're all over the place. Let's say
Yes.
hello to Dark Star and Nina Sally, the two viewers, two commenters at the moment.
So I should say that if this was the BBC, I would have been sent on a media training course first, just to tell me, how you react on camera, because I've never done a piece to camera in my life.
Well, you've been here 10 minutes. That's enough, isn't it?
It's nearer 2 hours, actually.
Oh,
it might seem like 10 minutes to you.
Oh, yeah, anyway, there we are. We're on, and we've got lots to talk about with the BBC. David Legge from the BBC World Service. Just to prove that this is David, can you give us a demonstration there, please, David?
Well, I used to say, this is London.
Da, 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 da,
Yes,
da, da, da,
exactly.
da. Yeah.
Da, 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 da.
And it used to, but you didn't
But I'm
fade out.
afraid we missed the junction, so apologies for that.
We wanted to be fading in and out.
Oh, yes. Well, I can always do that if you like. Yes, I'm taught like that.
David's voice, do you remember, anybody heard that voice on the radio over the decades? I mean, you were on the shortwaves. It was Radio Moscow, the Voice of America, or David Legge, wasn't it?
Well, I wasn't on those stations, but yes, it was during that era, I suppose.
Hello to Dark Star. Good to have you along there.
And hello to Nina.
Now, during this broadcast, you may hear this sound. It's a random sound, and if that happens, it will be time for a yellow card. These are yellow, random yellow wild cards, but it's not time for that yet.
Right, okay. And is there an ejector seat that goes off if you're not happy with the interview?
That's been creaky.
And it's not under my weight, I should point out.
No.
So, no.
When I did the promo, it sounded like you were a large gentleman, because I said we're going to have to move things around for David. But,
yes. And also, I suppose I should point out that the photo that you used on the promo was a photograph of me from 1987, which was actually 5 years before I joined the World Service. So we're talking, that was how I looked 35 years ago, and this is how I look today.
You haven't changed.
For those people, well, apart from the colouring of the hair and the receding hair on top, but apart from that, if people thought, well, he's aged a bit since that photo was put up.
You haven't aged since this photo.
Oh, yes.
I gather you were born at a very early age,
yes,
David.
that
Can you
is
tell
true.
us more about that?
Yes, I was born in Brighton at the end of 1960. I won't give you the exact date or my bank details, you understand. But yes, that was a photo of me in the bath at about the age of 12 months or 18 months old. Yes.
And when did you decide you wanted to be on the radio?
Well, I suppose it was, I remember on my 7th birthday, which was November 1967, I was given a one-band transistor radio, a medium wave radio, as
Is
it was called.
Is that
No, that came in 1976. Okay. But it was a Freddie, the brand was Freddie, and it just medium wave only. And I used to have that in my bedroom, and I used to turn it on when I woke up. And it was November 1967, and there weren't many radio stations in the UK on medium wave. And I used to, when I woke up at about 7 o'clock in the morning, I put on Radio 1, BBC Radio 1, which is the BBC's domestic pop music channel, which had only been on the air for about 2 months.
Just going to say, yeah.
And I used to listen to the Tony Blackburn Breakfast Show on Radio 1, which was 7 till 9, Monday to Friday. Couldn't listen to all of it because I had to go to school.
So you don't remember pre-Radio 1, really?
No.
Okay.
That was the very first time when I had my own radio. I could tune around and see what I could get on this medium wave radio.
You don't remember I'm getting closer because I'm stopping that reflection. Don't worry. You don't remember the BBC Light programme?
No, I don't. I mean, my parents must have had it on, but I was too young to remember. And apparently I was told later by my mother when I was a teenager that apparently in those days, so I was just approaching my 7th, well, it was my 7th birthday. I was 7 years old, And I used to remember the jokes that Tony Blackburn told on the breakfast show, and I'd repeat them. I'd tell them to the teachers and my classmates.
You didn't
at
use
school.
those on the World Service?
No. Oh, there was one I used once. Yes, it was at the end of a programme called Outlook, and we were told to just lighten up in continuity and be a bit less formal. And there was a programme called Outlook, a magazine programme, and the presenter was John Tidmarsh, or it might have been Barbara Myers, but they were presenting at the time. And the last item was a feature about unusual smells and smells that you remember. And that was how the programme ended. It was after this feature. And so I came off the back of the programme and said, yes, when I woke up this morning, there was a strange smell in my bedroom. I think the alarm clock had gone off.
Right.
And yes, I think that was all right.
Good,
and that was a Tony Blackburn joke
I see.
that I then told in the mid-1990s. So it's recycled almost 20 years later.
What about your family? Did you come from a show business family? I mean, was your dad the Marconi or somebody like that?
No, I mean, my dad.
Who's
yes,
that?
yes.
Who we got? That's your mum and dad there.
Yes,
isn't it?
that's right. Yes.
And that's little David Legge there on your mum's knee.
Yes. So yes, my mum was the entertainer. She was a dancer, and from an early age, she used to dance for the Molly Ball School of Dancing in Brighton, and she won a number of certificates because after she died about 12 years ago, I was going through her wardrobe and I came through all these dancing certificates that she won. And in the 1950s, so before I was born, her claim to fame was that she was with the Tiller Girls. And they did appear once or twice, yes, and that was probably taken on the roof of the Hippodrome in Brighton. And yes,
so she met some people at the Sunday night. So she was on Sunday night at the London Palladium.
I believe so. Yes.
What about Brucey?
Although, well, I'm not sure whether. I'm not sure whether she met Brucey.
You see, this is what you get. You get impersonations here.
Yeah, well, I wasn't allowed to do
the
those.
Two television.
But yes, I'm not sure.
It might have been.
I think it was before. I think it was before Brucey took over.
So who was on? Who'd be on? Which we're going way back now.
Yes,
Tommy
I
Trinder
don't know.
or somebody.
Yes, it probably was. I think he was the first presenter. So I think it probably was Tommy Trinder. And then sadly, when she finished, when she gave birth to me,
that ruined it all.
paid to her career, her dancing career. And I think the idea was that if she'd had a girl, a daughter, would have followed in her footsteps.
Yeah.
But obviously, being a boy, it didn't quite work out. I did do tap dancing for a while.
Yeah.
But I found that my creative, I didn't really like it.
Didn't go down too well, really, on the... Oh!
Right.
It's time for a late German, a wild card. Coffee or tea?
Well, coffee in the morning and tea in the afternoon.
It can only be one or the other, I'm afraid. Sorry about that.
Well, that's what I do. But
Yeah,
I
but
suppose,
choose
really,
between the
it
two.
ought to be tea, yes.
Tea. Transistors or valves?
Transistors, because that's what I've grown up with.
Really?
Yes, I haven't really known valves.
I think a lot of our viewers would... Anyway, transistors it is. And the final one for now, AM or FM?
Oh, definitely AM. I'm still an AM person, yeah. Brought up on AM radio, or when it was known as medium wave.
Of course, being on the big voice on the shortwave, David, you were one of the few. Willis Carnover doing the Jazz Hour, and some other big names, and David Legge on the radio, listening to shortwave. Did you actually, when you were home, spend any time listening to shortwave yourself?
I suppose it was before I started working in radio. I remember as a teenager, I was given it was from a gentleman who was a radio ham who retired.
About then?
Yeah, no, it was older than that. I would have been about 7
Oh, well,
there.
but
you could see
through.
that's almost, I could be a BBC news.
I can see you were developing the look.
Yes,
at that
yes.
point, the David Legge
They're
look.
very earnest.
It's same spec. Have you had new lenses put in?
Yes, I have had the prescription changed since then.
Okay.
But I would have been about 7 years old. That was probably when I got the transistor radio.
Uh-huh.
But then when I was a bit older, perhaps 12, 13, I acquired this old valve apparatus from a retired radio ham. It was a communications receiver, but it used to frighten me to death because it's a huge, great box, and you could lift the lid up. It's a bit like looking in the engine of a car, and there are all these valves that you thought might suddenly blow up. And my dad managed to feed a long wire aerial around the loft, just to bring in some of the shortwave stations.
Okay, so you did hear a few. Do you have
yes.
any memories of what you picked up?
Well, no, I heard a few sort of radio hams, local radio hams in the area. I used to tune in on a Sunday morning because round about that time I found out that there was a bit of unauthorised pirate activity on the 49-metre shortwave band, people operating from unknown locations in the UK on land.
Should have been a wild card, that, shouldn't it? Legal or pirate.
Yes. So I was tuning in just to hear what these pirates are doing on shortwave on a Sunday morning. I suppose that was my main interest. Yeah. And then as I got older, I got more interested in sort of recording things because I was left a reel-to-reel tape recorder. And I started making my own recordings indoors, doing radio shows and so on.
Sort of about that. That's the Bamba.
Yes,
that's
I mean,
more
that
the Bamba Gascoigne.
Yes. I think people did say that at the time.
Yeah.
So what would I have been? Sort of 15, I think, 14, 15 at that point. Yeah, so we're talking mid-70s, yes.
Very nice.
But yeah, and I started getting interested in radio because by that time we got a local radio station in Brighton, a BBC local radio station. And it did get to the stage where I remember, because I had this tape recorder, reel-to-reel tape recorder, and when my parents had finished with the daily paper, I'd just get the morning newspaper and I'd take it into my bedroom, and then I'd sit there with a microphone and just read the news from the newspaper.
Okay.
Just to practice. Yes.
Because it always amazes me how you could get through. See, that's something I could never do. How you could just get through. You'd never used to make a slip.
Well, sometimes, yes.
Can you remember the first news bulletin you ever did on BBC World Service?
No, probably not. No. Although I remember, and I remember you telling me this, but there was one occasion, it must have been in the very early days, I did have a bit of a dry mouth. I think I was slightly nervous, because I was slightly aware that, how many millions of people were listening around the world.
I think it was your first one.
Yes, right, in that case, yes. And I do remember being, old, and you didn't have a chance to, take a swig of something.
Well, I think I heard your first one. We were in Malta. I'd gone to work in Malta on a radio station, just arrived there, driving down the high street in Valletta, and put the radio on, the station that I was going to be on. And who comes on at the top of the hour? That David Legge reading the news. They took the World Service News. Yeah. I knew you'd been for the interview and stuff. I just got such a shock. And I heard you reading that news. Absolutely perfect. But I could detect a sort of... Can you do that? That's a little bit of a...
No, I can't recreate it.
It was sort of BBC World Service... just a little bit there. I thought other than that, absolutely perfect. Yeah, first bullet.
Yes. I suppose, and at that point, I'd worked in local radio for 10 years. Although admittedly, I hadn't done a lot of news reading. I'd done everything else, introducing records, programs. I was used to doing continuity links in between, recorded shows on local radio. But the one thing I hadn't done was news reading, other than reading from newspapers in my parents' home when I was growing up as a teenager.
The local radio bit we've got.
Yes.
Where are we here?
Started off in commercial radio.
They've got a few fine friends, and on that local radio station.
That was that was the first station I worked for, which was Southern Sound Radio in Brighton. I was there from August 83 to September 87.
Remind us who's on that picture.
And on the other side of me is Tommy Boyd. So I was his foil. We did a late night, Sunday night phone-in. And then on the back row, you had Nicky behind Tommy, who later went on to be a very well-known presenter on Southern Sound, had an 18-year career with them. Kathy and Gary Hornbuckle.
He was the engineer, wasn't
he? And then, yes, that's right. He later became chief engineer at the radio station, but they're all helping out on this wacky Sunday night programme. And Mary used to answer the phones. But that was taken about 1987. That was the section of the photo that you used that I was.
Yeah, that's
yes.
right. So that was 30
Yes.
odd years. Oh,
So,
it is now time, ladies and gentlemen, for another wild card. And we'll, by the way, say hello. Can we say hello to? We've got Ian and Oscar watching at the moment.
well, that's
So,
good. Yes.
very nice. Thank you very
it's
much.
nice to know that we're being received. because,
Beatles or Rolling Stones?
Beatles, I think. Yes.
Blonde or brunette?
Blonde, I suppose. Yes.
Are you a leg man or can't put that one in there? Steak or
Well, I
kidney?
suppose the clue might be in the surname.
Steak or kidney pie or fish and chips?
Fish and chips.
Very nice. Thank you very much indeed.
I haven't had fish and chips for a while, but I'm hoping next Tuesday. I've got an appointment with some fish and chips on Tuesday lunchtime.
Now, what's the most difficult word you've ever had to recite on the BBC
know.
World Service?
I mean, there were so many.
And what did you do? Perhaps is a better question. If you
Yes.
saw something looming, because you could
well,
pick a script up, can't you, and just start reading
Yes,
it.
although normally we were given our scripts in advance, so we had time to prepare. And if we weren't given them in advance, you could actually read on the computer. You could read in. And luckily, the shift gave you a sort of a 25, 30-minute read-in period. So you didn't just go to the newsroom, pick up the scripts and waltz in. So you were able to get into the story, make sense of it, and you could see in advance any pronunciations.
It's sort of a huge endeavour, though. How long was
Yes.
the bulletin? About 15
Yes.
minutes or so.
Well, they varied. I do remember the one that was particularly arduous, and it was only in the early years, and then it got changed. But at the end of a night shift, we used to finish at 8 o'clock in the morning, 8 hours GMT, with a 9-minute, 15-second straight read. So there were no inserts. You were just on your own. You were controlling your own microphone. You were sitting there for 9 minutes, 15 seconds reading the scripts.
and all on paper then, I suppose, was
Yes, and you've been up all night, so this was at the end of a night shift.
You
And
probably
obviously the concentration goes a bit after sort of an 8 or 9 hour night shift.
You're sort of totally on your own. You know, if you
Yes,
present
yes.
any other kind of
Yes.
where there's two people there, or you've got
Yes.
records to play, commercials
because
to
some
go to.
programs they'd be double headed, so
Yeah.
you could throw to the other
But you're
presenter.
there, you're,
yes, but we had a chance we could look up the pronunciations in advance, although occasionally something would be thrown at you. You just have to take a run at it and hope for the best. But normally you'd be able to look up the pronunciations. There was a massive card index, like similar to your cards, but not yellow, and a bit more upmarket. But we could look up the pronunciations in the newsroom. And later days, we had the pronunciation unit database on a computer. And also our colleagues who've been on before us were keeping a list of all the pronunciations, and they were written down phonetically.
Yeah.
So then when you saw a name, yes, you wrote it down on your script in pencil because you got room. It was all double spaced, so you could write the pronunciation down.
And
But
then you mess up the word after that.
Yes,
then.
yes. You'd think, well, that was great. I got that. It's perfect.
Oh, relief.
Yes, and then you trip over something, an ordinary word in the next sentence.
We've got Jonathan. Who's this? We've got a gentleman on here, Jonathan Soul. Hello there, Jonathan. Good to have you along. Sorry if we're missing anybody. M. Duffy is on board there watching us today. And we say a big hello to you. You've worked for the major radio station in the world, really, the BBC, as far as radio goes. What's it like, David, to work now for an international television station like Long in the Tooth Television?
Well, it's a completely new experience, I must say. It's the first. I don't do anything on Facebook or Twitter. I don't post anything. I've got I don't have an online profile.
It's an exclusive.
I don't think people are that interested in what I had for breakfast, other than perhaps my doctor.
Well, that's all that is on Facebook anyway.
Right.
People take
Yes, I've never
food.
felt the need. Well, until now, until your invitation, and I only did that because I've known you for so long. But yes, so it is quite a new challenge. And as I say, I haven't had any media training, so if I keep looking in the wrong direction or veering off or going off topic, you've only got yourself to blame, Peter.
Yeah, well, that's fine. We're just having a little chat here. Anybody got any questions, just let us know. Shall we have a look at Bush House? This is the
Yes.
building that you would be walking into every day. I mean, I walked
Yes.
past it once, and what an imposing building.
Yes.
That's the home of the BBC World Service.
Coming towards it from that direction, you're coming down the Kingsway. I never entered it from that direction, but that was usually the entrance that I went in. And I'd come over from Waterloo. So if you were to go round and round to the right, it goes into a crescent, and then you've got a long road, that Waterloo Bridge Road. You go over Waterloo Bridge. So I'd be coming up into the Strand that way.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, that's the best way. And it looked fabulous at night when it was all lit up. It got the lights on. And then you'd enter and you'd present the security guard with your pass.
Just going to say, I mean,
yes, I'm wearing
hold on,
this.
Let's get that on there. There's the
Yes.
pass.
So this is my.
We can't zoom up.
This would have been deactivated some years ago. I was told I could
walk
keep
in with
it.
it now.
No, they wouldn't let me in now. But it shows. It does. It says BBC David Legge, and then it says staff. So that proves that I was
There we
there.
are. That's the genuine item,
Yes.
ladies and gentlemen.
And then eventually, when the system, you still had security guards at the entrance, but then you got a revolving door, and you had to touch this against the revolving door for it to go round.
Digital media fan. Can we just say hello there to digital media fan? Oh, and here we go. It is time now, ladies and gentlemen, for another wild card. Oh, have we done steak and kidney pie or fish and chips? We've done that one. Facebook or Twitter. Well, you've sort of answered that. But if you had to pick, do you know anything about it?
I don't
Any
know,
of them?
not really. So I suppose Facebook, but no, I
Okay.
haven't gone down that road
Well,
yet.
yeah. Dogs or cats?
Yes, instinctively
Careful, Mia's
cats.
listening.
Yes, well,
Where is
yes,
she?
because you've got a dog,
Oh,
haven't
there you
you? Well, yes, yeah.
Yeah, you can see Mia on other videos. She's
Yes.
we can't get a camera.
But no,
on her.
I've always liked cats
Hmm.
because we did have a stray cat once. My parents took in a stray cat, but we've never had a dog. Although I don't have any objection to either. But
Favourite DJ of all time?
oh, that's a difficult one, isn't it?
Present company excluded.
Yes. Well, I suppose, I don't know about favourite, the person you love to hate is Tony Blackburn because of the corny jokes and the fact that he's still going after all these years. So he's still heard on the BBC's domestic network Radio 2, and he's 79 years old now, so you've got to admire him for that.
Hello to our American viewers who will probably be watching this later, hopefully.
Yes. Or if you have got up especially early,
Yes.
we do appreciate it. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
and they might not know who Tony Blackburn is.
Well, although he's been around for so long, I failed to.
Shall we have a look inside at one of the? Now, I don't know. You have got some pictures there, but we haven't had time to get them up. And that is inside a BBC World Service studio. That's not you sitting opposite there, is it?
I can't see, it's a bit too small. There is one of me sitting in a studio, but I don't know whether from that, I can't tell. But it looks like, yes, you're looking at it, so you've got the control
That's
area.
the control area,
Which is
and
where
that's the
the-
reader over there.
Yes, that's right.
And that is,
yes.
that is right. That is the BBC World Service studio.
Yeah, so that would be presumably Bush House. It looks very similar to the studios they had at Bush House. So you'd have your studio manager sitting on that side, operating all the controls for you, playing in any pre-recorded items. You'd have a producer who would make sure you've got all the scripts, and then you'd have a broadcast assistant who would be bringing scripts round to you if stories were changing or being updated. Yes, you'd have them. Yes, you'd have three people normally on that side of the glass. Yes.
Jonathan Soul wants to know what famous breaking news stories, big stories that you recall that you've broken there.
Well,
News flashes or whatever.
yes, yeah, no, I
Not to go into anything political, we won't be talking about that, but just the headlines of the things that you remember that stand out.
I actually had a lucky escape because I was doing a late day shift on the night that the news came through that Princess Diana had been involved in a car crash. And I think at that point I was on duty until 10:30 at night, and that was all the story was. She'd been involved in a car crash on the continent, and I think the night shift who were coming in, yes, that they bore the brunt of it, and they had to announce the sad news in the early hours of the morning that Princess Diana had died.
It's interesting how big news is always bad news, isn't it?
Yes, yes. And I feel I'm glad I had a lucky
that's another
escape.
story.
Yes, and luckily I didn't have too many stories like that to deal with, because I do wonder, how I would have reacted. And you've just got to try and read it impassionately without putting emotion in. And I think I probably would have been a bit too.
Well, you say emotion, you can't start crying or something like that, but
No.
you have. I mean,
Yes,
you
I mean,
have to
could
know
feel
how to
that-
deliver
yes,
something.
Yes, you could feel the voice start to falter a bit and go a bit wobbly.
But you have to say it in a different way, don't
yes,
you?
yes.
When it's terrible
Yes.
news to when
So
it's
there weren't any terrible
regular news.
breaking stories that I remember, very fortunately. Yes, other than events going on in the world, I do remember doing a live interview with a correspondent. I can't remember who it was or where it was, and it was fairly early on, and it was in a half-hour news program called News Desk, which became World Briefing and is now known as the Newsroom, but essentially it's the same program. And I was interviewing a correspondent, and I can't remember which country he was in, but you could hear bombs and ammunition, you could hear machine gun fire in the background and explosions. And it was most bizarre, it was strange, because I was sitting there with headphones, and I actually wanted to hear, the danger is that you're trying to concentrate on what's going on in the background.
You never felt like you wanted to go out and do live reporting in war-torn areas.
No, well, I'd always been a radio person. But I do admire those people, and it does take a special kind of journalist.
Yeah.
And obviously, yes, I'd be years away from that. I mean, this is the first thing I've done on camera, so you could imagine you wouldn't go from being a newsreader to, let's send him out to Afghanistan or wherever.
Anna Claire wants to know, what is your go-to radio station? Now, presumably you mean now, Anna.
Yes, I suppose for news and current affairs, it tends to be a mixture of Radio 4 with BBC Radio 5 Live, both BBC channels. And then I also listen to local radio stations, both BBC and commercial, for local news, weather and travel. And for music, I suppose it has to be the legendary Radio Caroline, and one or two other stations. There's a 60s station that plays oldies called Atlantis,
I've heard of
which
that.
I quite enjoy
I've
listening
heard of
to
that.
online.
Called Atlantis. Right. That brings us smoothly into another wild card, yellow card. Well, I've done favourite DJ.
We've
of all
had Tony
time.
Blackburn already. He's got far too much airtime.
Oh, well, I think we've probably just covered it. Anna's just covered this. If you were stranded on a desert island, what radio station would you want to pick up? If you could only pick up one radio station.
Well, I
we've
suppose,
sort
yes.
of done that one, haven't we?
Either the World Service or Radio 4. And I'm pleased to see that a lot of my ex-colleagues who were freelance announcers are now, they do actually do shifts on both Radio 4 and the World Service. And I'm thinking of people like Neil Nunes, Jim Lee, Charles Carroll. They cross-match, as it were, which is, it's all one BBC, so
I thought
why
we'd put
not?
that back on again, just to have a little... on
a
a
bit of a-
scale.
Yes.
Oh, very appropriately, the next wild card. Yellow wild card. On a scale of 1 to 10, how hot do you like your shower water?
1 to 10. I suppose 7. Yes,
7.
7 is the answer. Yeah.
The most embarrassing store you might be seen shopping at?
Embarrassing. Well, I suppose I might pop in to a charity shop, for example. Not that there's anything embarrassing about that.
Oh, well, you get it all
Yeah.
online
and,
now
and
anyway.
I quite like these pound stores. Yes.
Okay,
But yeah.
good. That's very good. Yeah. digital medallion, yes, Tony Blackburn. Papa Doodle, fantastic, he says.
Yeah, so they have heard of Tony Blackburn. Of course,
Yeah, well, I
everyone's
don't know
heard.
whether I think.
I mean, he
he's
must
sort
be
of
known
local.
around the world after all these years, because I'm sure he would have made sure that everyone knows about him all around the world, don't you?
Do you remember the day when they phoned you up and said, yes, we'll have you on the BBC World Service. You've got the job. I mean, is that how it works?
I think I got a letter, because initially I went up for an interview, and then I had a letter back saying, thank you for coming to see me. This is from the head of presentation, English World Service. And thank you for coming to see me. Unfortunately, we've got no vacancies at the moment, but we'll keep your name on file, which is something everyone's heard, which is why you laughed. And that's what I thought. I thought, well, that's a polite turn down, because let's face it, I'd done nearly 10 years of local radio, but I wasn't known for my news reading. And then a few months later, but I was still working in local radio, so I hadn't lost anything. And then a few months later, I had another letter saying, would you be interested in doing some freelance shifts? And then I suppose that was a way of getting me in and trying me out. And then, of course, if something went disastrously wrong, or if I let the side down, they didn't need to offer me any more shifts. And so I did then become a regular freelance. And it was from that I started when I was there in 93. The first 3 years I was employed on a freelance basis. And then they moved me on to a 1-year sort of fixed term contract. And then I was offered the staff contract in 2016, which lasted for about nearly 16 years.
And that came all out of Don't Call Us, We'll Call You.
Yes,
So there's a little tip for anybody who gets that response when they apply for something.
So sometimes when they say, we'll keep your name on file,
it can mean that they keep your name on file.
But that was the first time I'd ever come across that. I thought, I was getting the bum's rush.
As it was.
Yes, that is an expression which might not be well known around the world, but...
Anna Claire comes back with another question. What do you think of the new streaming services like Spotify and SoundCloud and things like that? Do you use any of that
stuff? No,
stuff?
I haven't. I must admit I haven't.
You've got all your CDs.
Yes. I was a great collector of vinyl records. So I started with 45s. And then LPs, compilation albums.
You've got everything on hard copy.
Yes.
You've got vinyl.
And then I went on to CD, and now I've made MP3 copies of my CD, and I've got everything stored on hard drives, USB sticks, SD cards.
Yeah.
And I always remember thinking, because I suppose my ambition, when I was working in local radio, my ambition was to start my own radio station. And so I thought, well, I've got enough material here. So if I was suddenly given a license in the UK to set up my own pop station, I've got all the music I need. So I don't use any of the others.
But you don't need to use that. No, and of course, it's the same with DVDs. You've got a massive wall.
That's something else we could talk about. Collecting old television shows on DVD and Blu-ray.
Big collector of microphones is David. How many microphones have you actually? You've only got one voice, but you've got a lot of microphones.
Yes, not as many as CDs and records, but no, it's surprising. You can get surprisingly good quality microphones, broadcast quality, for very little money. And there are on YouTube, because I watch YouTube quite a lot, there are a number of microphone reviews.
Yeah.
And so that's, I suppose, that's a little temptation of mine. So that's
buying a microphone.
Yes, just to try to hear what it sounds like, on your voice. And the challenge is to get the best quality sound you can for as little money as possible.
And you've sort of achieved, you've spent a lot of money on. We'll do a video. Let us know if you like our video. We'll do a video testing out all these different microphones.
So I've got microphones that cost me about 10 UK pounds, up to about, I suppose the most expensive is just over £400.
What about, you've got the Electro Voice ones, probably more than that.
I've got, for viewers in America, I've got an Electro Voice RE27ND.
Yeah.
Which is the top of the range broadcast mic, which is used on YouTube.
And it doesn't sound as good as the £10 one.
Well, no, it does.
It just shows you when you compare the two. I mean, this is a whole different subject. We'll do this thing with a microphone. We'll rig it up so that we can test all these different microphones and we'll list them. And I think people probably find that quite interesting.
Yeah, so
I know that I've seen other YouTube video people doing that, but. To compare those different microphones. We're just going back to Spotify and things like that. And Nina says, do you think it's sad that people don't listen to radio much anymore? They listen to they make their own playlist, Spotify playlist.
I suppose so, really, but I think the evidence in the UK is that there is still quite an audience for radio.
Well, it's people who are long in the tooth,
yes,
isn't it?
Yes, compared with if you think about.
Nina isn't very old.
No, of course.
And so.
Yes. So when we started in radio,
a lot of teenagers, people in their 20s, don't even own a radio.
But if you think now, there's so much more available. There are so many different sources, so many ways of listening to music and getting information. Whereas when we were growing up, it was just AM, FM, long wave, short wave, and that was it. You just got the analog broadcast. There was no digital radio. There was no streaming.
I think anybody listening to this, youngish person listening to this who doesn't own a radio, you can't really portray, can you, how important radio was.
And of course, in many countries, less well-off countries, transistor radios like these were quite cheap to purchase, as opposed to computers and online streaming devices, although things have got cheaper over the years. But it's the same with all media. I mean, with television and with news.
Nobody watches the TV anymore. They all watch long in the tooth television.
Well, yes.
And you watch it on your TV, on your smart TV.
Perhaps I ought to start doing news bulletins.
What are the main people? I mean, what do the BBC? You don't know the answer to this.
Yes.
What do the BBC think of all the internet radio stations and YouTube channels that are on now? How long? How much time do people spend watching BBC TV?
Well, yes, they would have all the figures. They still do the research, the audience research, but yes, they'd have all the figures at their disposal. But yes, it's just that there's so much more of everything now. So it's so much easier to get radio, TV, information, films, videos. You've got so much choice. Whereas if you just go back to the 70s and 80s, 1970s, 1980s, when we were starting our careers, there wasn't much, there wasn't any alternative.
Times have changed, they certainly... Right, what have we got here? Have we done this one before? We're on to the yellow. Whenever you hear that sound, you know it's time for a yellow card. It's
as long as I don't get the red card.
Yeah, we've only got yellow here.
Yes, the red card comes at the end of the broadcast.
I think it's the Selfridges bag we cut up for this. What's for dinner tonight?
I'll probably do, depending on what time I get home, it'll probably be a roast beef dinner.
It's an hour broadcast, by the way. We've got about 20 minutes left.
Well, that's all right.
Could end at any time if something goes wrong. Or something fails.
Yes, I've got a frozen roast beef dinner.
Oh, yeah.
This make either Nina or Ella laugh, which I can either put in the oven or cook in the microwave. Because if I need something in a hurry, if I'm quite hungry by the time I get home. But yeah, thank you for your hospitality.
When it comes to a ready meal, do you find that
this will be the clip that he uses?
When it comes to a ready meal, do you prefer it in the microwave or prefer it in the oven? Do you think there's any difference?
Yes, I think you do get a better result from the oven, definitely.
Except the rice can sometimes go hard on top, don't you find, and go all crusty.
Well, not if you stir it at half time.
You have to. Which is all this trouble. I mean, what's the point?
Yes, as long as you read the instructions, you normally can't go far wrong.
What's the point in having a ready meal if you've got to keep standing up and stirring?
Well, no, only once. At half time.
If you've got half an hour, you can get a cook mic in or something.
No, I think you're extracting the Michael there, Peter.
No, it's
Peter
all very
Michael.
important stuff. When you're whilst listening to shortwave, of course.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
You'll make sure your two daughters see this.
They do a microphone technique. The BBC uses distance from mic, breathing, etc. This is Jonathan Sol wants to know this.
Yes, we were taught to sit like
close.
This, go in and out, just to get the effect of counteract. No, I'm joking.
Oh, right. Sorry.
No.
Well, I sit like on the radio. Yes. I knew a DJ used to rock like that all the time.
Yeah, well, that was because he was out in the North Sea. But
his gimbal, self-gimbal.
Yes, there was somebody. Yeah, I remember there was a guy out on the previously mentioned Radio Caroline.
You get close to that.
Who broke about 3 chairs because he used to rock while he was at sea, even when the sea was calm.
So did they... How
But
far?
no,
we want to know how far.
Yes, it would probably, the microphone
came
would
from
be hanging
above.
from the ceiling, and it would normally be a Coles 4038, I think is the model.
Make a note of
ribbon
that.
microphone. Yes, you can look those up. They're still available, about £1,000 each. I haven't got one of those in my collection. And they didn't give me one when I retired.
That's a shame, isn't it?
Yes, but it was, yeah, so it would probably be, yes, a bit further than this microphone, but obviously pointing down, hanging down. But you'd have a studio manager who could advise you.
Nina's
Yes, and
got a
take
bit
level.
obsessed with the ready meals.
I thought
we
she
ought
would,
to have
yes.
one in the oven now, really,
Yes,
didn't we?
yeah. Well, perhaps she's going to prepare one for
It
us
would be
later.
nice, wouldn't it? What was I going to
Yes,
say then?
bring one
Microphone.
round.
Yeah, so...
No, she's out of the area.
oh,
isn't
this
she?
microphone, because that was a ribbon microphone.
Yes,
I
yes.
don't know much about ribbon microphones.
No. Well, that probably could be something for another video.
Yeah, it could be,
Because
couldn't it?
I think most of the studios you'd have a condenser microphone as well. But yes, the Coles 4038. Also, we used Neumann's, very popular German make.
Yeah.
I seem to remember BCM 705 springs to mind. That was in Studio S47, which
Make a
was
note
your
of that.
self-op news studio at Bush House, which is all gone now, so it won't be there. And yes,
Well, this particular microphone here,
yes,
do you know what kind of microphone that is?
no,
That is a real microphone. It's not a. It's not a prop. Although you're not hearing that, you're hearing this one at the back. That's actually a very old crystal microphone.
Right,
Ecstatic,
yes.
Ecstatic D, it's called.
yeah, so that would sound very much like the early days. That would sound like 2LO calling, wouldn't it?
That's right, and it's very
Yes.
good on communication because it's very toppy, crispy.
Yes. But yeah, so we didn't have any particular technique. It was just a question of sitting at the required distance. And because of where the microphone was, so if I'm sitting here now, you'd sit up against the table, and then the microphone would be at the halfway point. So it would probably be about 2 feet away. And
One
that's
thing I
it.
can remember hearing
Yes.
when listening to BBC World Service, maybe before you were on it, when I was a kid, was the processing seemed extreme. And I think I can remember hearing a clock ticking.
Oh.
This
Yes,
was the BBC World, and it did sound like they were quite away from the microphone.
Yes. Yes.
With the processing picking up the ambience of the room and the clock ticking. But maybe that's just my imagination.
That could be
I
the
can't remember.
case, yes. But that was a long time ago.
Probably use some
well, when we were
gating.
in a self-op studio, I suppose you'd have the microphone about 4 or 5 inches from you. But obviously, you check your level before going on the air, so you pre-fade your level. So the straight reads and the fairly straightforward bulletins that didn't require any studio manager, you'd be in charge of your own destiny. So you'd set up your own level. But obviously, I've been used to doing that in local radio. But
Are these
otherwise-
laser lights are worrying you because it's shining
No,
across
no,
there,
no.
and they're whether. Oh, and there we go with another wild. Let's see what we've got on the wild cards here. Any questions? Just let us know.
We really want to hear from you, friends.
We
as
do.
Huey
We really
Green
mean
used
that
to
most
say.
sincerely.
Going back in time now, Franz used to host Opportunity Knocks.
We haven't had it. Tell us before we do the.
Yes.
No, we've got to do the wild card because
Right.
when the bell rings, we have to do the
Yes,
wild
but
card.
you want to tell me
I've got something else I want to
Yes,
ask.
I know what you were going to
I
ask
hate
me.
this to-
Because when you looked,
See, I've got no notes, and I hate to
yes,
think. Oh,
this is
shit,
all
bastard.
spontaneous. I've just written down a few notes here. But
On this wild card,
Yes.
have you ever worn socks with sandals?
No, I haven't. No.
No.
Well, I don't remember, not on a regular basis, wearing sandals. But there was an announcer who used to work as a colleague who'd been there for many, many years, since the 1960s. And he retired in the mid-90s, so there's a bit of an overlap. And he used to wear sandals with no socks. And there was one night where he caught his toe on a piece of furniture. And yes, he did seriously hurt his foot.
Oh, dear.
I don't know whether he had to take sick leave, and I hope it didn't affect the news bulletin. But yeah, so I'm not a sandals person, and certainly I wouldn't be using them. I mean, even though they can't see you on the radio, but no, I wouldn't be seen going into the BBC wearing sandals.
Well,
Although
not
in the case
necessarily
of
with
this-
the. I mean, this
yes.
is just generally,
Yes, yeah.
going to
I'm
Tesco
not,
or something.
No, I'm not a sandals person. person.
No.
I have had sandals, but
David, tell us a little about the attire you've chosen for us today
Yes.
on Long in the Tooth television.
well, I thought yes, I got the ID card out, and that reminded me this jumper that I'm wearing, which has seen better years, and it's got a few dog hairs on it since I met Mia a little earlier. Your
Where is she?
friendly. No, she's been
She doesn't
very,
want to be on camera.
No, she's gone away. But this was the jumper that I happened to
a dog,
buy.
by the way.
Yes. I bought this jumper there was a menswear shop just across the road. So as you came out of the main entrance and you
Tesco.
went up the Kingsway, no, on the left-hand side there was a store called Parks Menswear. And on this particular day, I remember I bought 2 jumpers. I got another one which is similar to this, and a pair of trousers.
I'm with you. I'm following this.
But it just so happened that I bought them on the day that Prince Charles was coming to Bush House, and he was being shown around the building. And it just so happened, I heard that he was coming to the newsroom just before 3:00. And on the day that I was reading the 1500 hours GMT news bulletin, and so this was the jumper that I wore. I put it on and wore it when Prince Charles came into the control room next door, and I was in the studio.
what did he say when he?
Well, I couldn't hear because obviously you can't hear what's going on the other side of the glass.
What would you imagine
I
he'd have
didn't.
said?
He probably said, "Who's that chap wearing that ghastly blue pullover?" And then he stayed for the start of the bulletin,
Right.
and then he had to go elsewhere. But they showed him around the newsroom first, and then he came into the studio, and I saw him there, looking through the glass. So I sort of I was trying not to
you've seen
look.
him. You've
Yes,
sort of met.
but so this is my Prince Charles jumper.
What other famous people
So
have you?
I've got to keep it.
What other famous people have you met? 'Cause,
I don't know.
You don't know.
No. Well, we didn't have. Normally, it all depends because of the shift pattern.
I'm thinking
shift
more of
system.
Bruce. Well, we've done Brucey.
Yes.
Because David does a few
Actually,
impersonations.
yes.
We're trying to get into the.
Well, there was, of course, Sir Robin Day, but he came a bit before my time.
Yeah.
Yes, hello, good evening, and welcome to Question Time. And yes, good evening. Yes, do you remember Sir Robin Day?
Yeah.
Yeah, he used to be on the TV and the radio. But,
And we've done Brucey.
and I haven't met Sir David Attenborough.
Who's
he's-
the Irish one you would?
Oh well, there was a colleague a colleague I worked with. Let's call him Bob from Belfast, and he was he had a very interesting sense of humour. I suppose we all did. We all had our quirks, but and people used to like impersonating him because he had a very strong Irish accent. And I remember there was one day we were in the common room, the announcers' common room, and there happened to be there were about 3 or 4 of us there. I don't know why there were so many of us gathered together at the same time. And he came up to me and he said, "I understand you do an impersonation of me. Well, let's hear it then." And so, and there were 2 other people standing there. So I thought, well, at least I've got an audience.
Yeah.
And so I started doing this impersonation of him, and they seemed to be enjoying it, the other colleagues.
And what did he do?
Whereas Bob from Belfast, he was sort of looking at me nonchalantly. And then his next words were, there was a slight pause because I wasn't getting any reaction
You've told me
from
this
him.
before. We can't say the word, can we?
Well, no, he said, "Why don't you blank off to the newsroom?"
Do you like Crocs? Anna wants to know, do you like Crocs? Well, I think that's... Do you
No.
mean... We're talking about shoes, aren't we?
Yes, no, I'm a bit of a lace-up man.
Bit of a lace-up,
Yeah,
bit
as you'd
traditional on
imagine,
that.
yes.
It's time for another one of these cards. Your favourite TV show, David, of all time?
I think it has to be, and it's celebrating its 50th anniversary at the moment, and it's the one I remember watching when it was originally on, 1971, 1972 in the UK, The Persuaders, starring Roger Moore and Tony Curtis.
Because you like all that... 60... Would that
yes.
be 60s or 70s?
Well, 71, 72.
Okay, yeah.
I would have been about 11 or 12 at the time. I really like the interplay between Roger Moore and Tony Curtis. And yes, I've collected that over the years. I've now got it on Blu-ray, and there's a new release coming out, a 50th anniversary special box set.
Okay.
Yes, that's
And
definitely
you've got a
my
whole wall
all-time
full of these
favourite.
DVDs. Well,
And I do
fabulous.
collect series from that stable, the ITC catalogue, but it's never looked better on Blu-ray. I must just tell you one other story about Bob from Belfast,
go on, then.
because he, yes, there was something else, because it said you were never sure whether he was in a good mood or not. So you had to approach him a little bit carefully, but it was understandable because the shifts did get a bit tiring, and they were a bit, sometimes if you were on you had a busy shift, so you get a bit tired and tetchy, which is understandable. And I always remember his classic remark. Somebody would go up to him and say, "Hello, Bob, how are you?" And he'd say, "I'm on a night shift. How do you think I am?"
Standard phrase, yes. Remember that. Dawn or dusk, off the wild cards there.
I suppose dusk, really, yes.
What, for ionospheric conditions?
Well, it's
still good.
I'd better check the ionospheric weather checker.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, I suppose dusk for shortwave listening.
It
yes.
is. Well,
yes.
It varies, doesn't it?
Yes.
On the medium wave. We like the medium wave at night. I remember my first medium wave radio, I couldn't pick a thing up on it. And then when it got dark, it was packed. So, that's how you get to know about your ionospheric thing. Scale of 1 to 10, how good of a driver are you?
I suppose that's not
talking
really
about
for
a
me
car.
to say, is it?
Well,
yes.
you've got to answer the question.
The journey
David.
I had
I'm sorry
coming
about
over
that.
here today, I'd say 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10?
Yes, I was driving as economically as possible.
I saw you pull up there very professionally.
Yes, sign of the times, but I was driving, yes, with a light foot on the accelerator.
We've got a 10 minutes left on this
Have
live
we?
stream.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
watching Long in the Tooth Television. My name's Peter, and this gentleman here is Mr. David Legge from the BBC World Service.
I hope I'm smiling.
Many years, because you see, this is
Because you can look a bit vicious. Because having had the media training, and it wasn't until we were doing our test
We've had 5
transmissions
minutes
earlier.
earlier on.
Yes, I can look a little bit. Yes, vicious.
Well, we're both radio, aren't we?
Yes, we're not used to appearing.
We
on
don't
camera.
smile.
No,
you don't smile,
no.
do you?
You don't. Yeah, you don't have to.
From the wild cards, is it wrong for a vegetarian to eat a jelly baby?
I wouldn't have thought so. Let's say no.
No to that.
Yes.
Good. What have we got on here? Anything here? And that's good. Right. So,
and I should
what have we done?
just for the record.
We're just
Yes,
winding up.
my last day of service. So I've actually I took voluntary redundancy. Excuse me, because I knew the World Service would be moving to Bush from Bush House to Broadcasting
Because you never presented from Broadcasting
No, I
House,
didn't.
did you?
No. So my last day of service was the 28th of June 2011. So I've been sort of retired now for nearly 11 years.
You're only 32, so that's pretty good going. Well, you got
And yes, so in fact, I've got a book here. Well, this is a book that was published by the Newsroom at Bush House, and it mentions written by
everybody you
current and former
interview
staff.
brings a book in.
All right. Well, you can't get
can't
this.
buy
This is
it, no.
unavailable. It's out of print. But it says that, yes, the move of World Service News to W1, that was in July 2012. So the complete move was about a year later. So I got out a year early, so to speak.
What was the parking like? Do you think the parking would have been better at the new
Probably
place?
not. No.
Because I think you actually left a radio station once, didn't you? Because you couldn't park. You couldn't find anywhere to park.
Well,
It's a good job
I
you had there as
changed
well.
shifts. I changed from a late shift to an early shift. Yes,
Yeah.
because of parking.
Yeah.
But no, I never drove up to London because I lived 50 miles away. It's a 50-mile journey. So you've got about a 9 or 10-hour shift. And then with your travelling, it made it a 13-hour day.
And do you remember your last ever bulletin? Can you actually remember it? Did you feel a little bit tearful, or just glad to get away?
It was at the end of a late shift, and it was the 22 hours GMT. Well, it might have been 21 GMT because it was British summertime then, and 22 hours BST. 10 o'clock I did it, and it was the 6-minute illustrated bulletin.
Did you say goodbye?
And no, I don't think I did. No, it was
that.
just I could have said, goodbye from
I've enjoyed
BBC
my
News.
time.
Yes,
It's now
thanks
time
so
for me
much.
to
Goodbye.
go. But you've got
No,
your
I
pension to think about. You didn't want to say anything. You didn't want to upset anybody.
So yes, well, my 16-year pension, I should have worn a shirt with small checks. But anyway, yeah. So that was nothing spectacular. Right? It was just a normal bulletin, quite straightforward. But as I came out of the studio, I got a round of applause from the journalists.
Really? Oh,
yes,
that's
which I wasn't
nice, isn't it?
expecting.
Yeah.
And then they opened a bottle of something, a bottle of bubbly, and they had some refreshments. And funny enough, they asked Neil Nunes, who was coming in for a night shift, if he would cover my half past the hour summary, so I could stay with them a little bit longer just to finish the light refreshments.
I think quite a few were.
Yes.
Were taking early retirement, weren't they?
Yes,
at that time?
yes.
You
The
took the
decision.
option.
Yes, I
Sensible.
decided that I
Great,
thought
why
it would be
not?
too sad to move from Bush House because that was all I'd ever known, and so I decided to say goodbye at that point rather than go to Broadcasting House.
You know, I just
And
think
also,
I was shift-
I'd never managed to find the place. You see, I thought I'd never be able to get
Sorry,
there.
I couldn't find it.
I'd be coming up on the train for a shift and then find I couldn't.
David
these-
Legge's not
yes.
here. He's got lost in London.
Yes, we apologise. We can't bring you that news bulletin.
And I suppose when you finish your shift, you're out on the town in London, whining
Well,
and
no,
dining.
not
were you?
where it's gone 10:30.
I'm talking about on a regular night when you were working there. You
Well,
were a
no.
big London guy around town.
no,
were you?
that was sad. No, because of the length of the shift.
Yeah.
You know, you just come in, do the work, and go home again.
Mm.
If there were leaving dues or socials or meetings, you come in especially for them if you could, if they didn't clash with your shift.
Mm.
But other than that, because I was doing about a 13-hour day, and when I was on a late, I only had about 2 trains to choose from to get back.
Yeah.
And I always tried to get the penultimate train because if that was cancelled, I got one
I don't
left
know how
over.
you managed it with the British
No,
trains. I don't know
no,
how
well,
you
there
ever
were
got there.
I always had a plan A, B, and C worked out.
Yeah.
But sometimes that didn't work. And I thought, well, if the last train is cancelled, I'll have to go back to Bush House and sleep in an office somewhere. Luckily, it didn't happen.
Favourite day of the week off the yellow cards?
I don't really have one. I mean, every day I
You've
can...
got, sorry, that's not, you've got to have one.
No.
You've got
Well,
to
let's
pick
say
one.
Sunday, yes.
Okay.
Because it's more calm and relaxed, apart from today. But yes, and you can do what you please. And normally things are slightly more... Yes, it's got a nice
Sunday,
feel about
great,
it. Yes, Sunday.
lovely day of
A
rest.
better vibe, yes.
Would you rather be able to speak every language in the world or be able to talk to animals?
I think every language in the world, yes.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
think, well, okay.
Because I only know English and a bit of Dutch. Goedemiddag luisteraars from België en Nederland. Welcome
I'm going to
bij
have to
onze
stop you there.
programma.
What is the duration of Bruce Hornsby and the Range, That's the Way It Is, including the intro time?
Well, that's going back to the days that I was in local radio, and I was in commercial radio at the time, because when I went to BBC local radio, you had to have a certain amount of orchestral music. Fred Bloggs and his orchestra. But we were playing that on Southern Sound. I think it was about 525 fades. I think the
Fades.
intro was about 105.
It's a long intro, that, wasn't
Yes, yes. So you wouldn't really need to
You could
talk
do the
up
weather,
to the
you could do all
vocals.
sorts
Yes.
of things.
No, I think that would be a bit much.
We've got the final wild card for you here, and it is: have you ever owned a hamster?
No, but I've owned a gerbil.
Oh, right.
That
Tell
was
us
the
about
first
that.
pet
Very-
I had
few
in
minutes left.
1970, Jimmy the gerbil.
Oh, yeah.
So that was it. That was
Great.
my
How did he
first
go?
pet.
Was he, did
He was
come
very
out
well
the cage?
behaved.
And,
Yes, yes. But yes, so as I say now, the World Service
You've got a
comes
gig.
from.
You've got a gig here. Would you ever consider DJing at the University of Kent?
Oh, well, it all
We have a
depends
lot
how
of
much
viewers.
they're offering.
We have a lot of viewers at the University of Kent at the moment. I do happen to
And it
know.
all depends the sort of music. It would probably be a bit.
We've got Fireclop here. In those days, when you read the news, no internet, etc., did you receive the general news from a central location, or was it via teleprinter or fax? I mean, how did the news come in? Because you didn't compile it, did you?
No,
Just
no,
read
it was
it.
written
Got
by
2 minutes
journalists
left.
in the newsroom. And they would be able to monitor the agencies and the wires, so you could see stories that perhaps Reuters and other news agencies were breaking, but obviously the BBC had their own checks and balances in place, so you'd have to wait until you'd seen this story on 2 sources. I mean, they probably changed it since then, so you couldn't publish a story if you'd only seen it on Reuters and not
Yeah.
on any other agency. And I do remember And I think I can make light of it now because time has elapsed. I do remember hearing on the newsroom tannoy, because the announcements would go out around the newsroom, just letting journalists that there's a story breaking. And I remember somebody pressing the key to the tannoy on the newsroom, and they said, "Newsroom, we're getting reports that the crocodile hunter Steve Irwin has been killed. We're preparing a snap." And I should point out, I'm reading the instruction, but the snap is a breaking story. And what that means is that they actually get the story together, but it's not broadcast. I'm just looking for the definition in this book. I marked it earlier. I've taken
Got
my
1 minute to go.
Yes.
Couple of minutes, that'll be it.
So that was it, yes. Which I thought that was the funniest thing I'd heard on the talk
I
back.
was just thinking, because the BBC World Service didn't have their own reporters, or did they?
Well, yes, we did have
Did you
correspondents.
use general BBC?
Yes, there were BBC correspondents, and there were also stringers in different countries.
So, but they
Yes.
would they also double up on the BBC
Yes.
News and
Yes, they would.
on TV?
They'd be across.
So they
So they
share
do.
it,
Yes, they do the domestics and television, BBC World Television. Yes, Snap was an extremely urgent story that must be written quickly.
Got you. Yeah.
So yes,
okay.
yes. But it was just sad. I mean, obviously you've got to get the information across as quickly as possible.
Well, we've had a very good time here today. We'd like to thank everybody for watching. Thank you for watching this. Let me just double check.
And I suppose, just to quote something that we used to use in local radio, a lot of it's rubbish, you know, but I hope it's been entertaining.
We do
And it's been
indeed.
totally off the cuff.
Shall we do it again sometime?
yes,
Probably not.
yes.
We
Well,
might. Yeah,
well,
why
I
not?
don't mind,
We're going
yes.
to do the microphones.
I'm not sure about the disco in Kent, but
Well, there we go.
well, you never know.
What is it, £10 an hour? It's not too bad.
Well, yes, I can't remember now. It's been
Okay.
a long time.
Well, thank you for watching this, this whatever it's been.
Have we
What
crashed
has
the
it
hard
been?
post? I think we've crashed the hard post.
think we
So if this had been,
me
we've missed Lily Bolero, we've missed the junction. But luckily on YouTube there aren't junctions, aren't there?
Well, we want to thank you for watching. Don't forget, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. There might be more. There may not. We'll just see. And
This
but there'll be
might
lots of
sink
videos.
without trace.
Lots of videos. So we got what is? Just tell us what the radio is again.
Well, that was one I was bought in 19. I've been using that regularly since 1976, May 76. A Bush Sandpiper, medium wave, long wave, and VHF. Did a lot of my medium wave listening on that radio. Still use it today in my kitchen.
Good, and it's looking good. It's not showing its age.
No, it's a bit dirty. It could do with a clean.
Thank you for watching. Goodbye, and
Thank you.
we'll see you again next time. Thank you. All the best. Thanks for watching Long in the Tooth Television.
Long in the Tooth Television.